Okay, I just want to quickly talk to you about the different resources for the parasitology class. And there's some fantastic resources out there already for parasitology. And as you know, this is just a 1-credit part of this class where you learn the key parts and key aspects of parasitology that are pertinent for your ASCP exam. So it's not a full-fledged parasitology class, but it is geared towards you passing the exam part. This said, myself and many of you I've talked to are very interested in parasitology and don't have a background already. So I'm providing you with some really outstanding resources that will help you beyond taking the exam, but actually in practice to understand and practice as a parasitologist if you want to. So the first site we're going to is Parasites Without Borders. And if you exit out of this initial window, there are many different opportunities. For example, there's a whole curriculum on tropical medicine. Parasitology in general is sometimes a little bit undervalued in America because we do see we see more in our companion animals and wild animals and food animals. But we do have quite a bit of parasitology in humans as well, but it can be easily overlooked. So the Parasites Without Borders is one of my favorite sites. And if you, for example, go to resources, you can go to the parasitic disease lectures. They have their own textbook as well. And I've got a lot of different resources. But the disease lectures are really great. And I have listened to almost all of them to refresh my knowledge on parasitology. Again, just to say that these people who are the authors and the podcast hosts are some of the experts and all-time important people in parasitology in this country. So you can see that pretty much for every parasite you can think of, for the, obviously for the most common groups, you have a full-fledged video, which part of it, most we have, is about the background, the distribution, the life cycle, and then the second half is usually about a case study and basically tying in the practical application. Along with this is the podcast This Week in Parasitism.
From Microbe TV, this is TwiP.
This is the most current one. Again, you can subscribe to Microbe TV, and they have different series. They have TwiP, This Week in Parasitism, This Week in Microbiology, TWIM, and also TwiP, which is This Week in Virology. Also, always great studies, case studies, different papers they're talking about, and so on. So interesting, really interesting and great resources you should be able to look at. Our CDC definitely has some great resources, a whole section on parasitology where it gives you news about different aspects, but then also when you go to the different diseases, it gives you information about all the parasites, life cycles, and so on and so forth. So again, a wealth of resources on your fingertips. And again, for us studying or preparing for the ACP exam, the diagnostic section obviously is a very important one. Another great resource which is free for UF students is GIDEON, which is the Global Infectious Disease Network database. And if you sign in, you usually get directed to your UF login because UF, through our department, subscribes to it. And again, you have a wealth of resources on your fingertips, which is fantastic as well. So the two things what I really like is what we use in the actual lab is the diagnostic of bacteria, but we will not talk about this now. We'll talk about this in our actual microbiology, clinical microbiology lab. We can talk here in this context with parasitology. You can talk about diseases. So you can actually diagnose a person and you can do the probability engine where you can add all the different parameters you know about the patient, or you can do interactive where you can look at the different symptoms and age, duration, location, especially for parasitology. Travel history is always really important. So that's a fun one, and when we talk about case studies we will use that feature as well. Another one is the A to C, so you can actually choose parasites and you get a list of 97 different parasites which you can examine here. And let's go to one of my favorite, which is toxoplasmosis. And you see, again, you have a wealth of information in there about the specific disease if you want to know more about it. You get the agent, what organism it is, and it brings you to another page where it tells you more about the actual parasite, the reservoirs, vectors, vehicles, incubation period, and so on. So you get a very systematic run through of all different parasitic diseases you can imagine. So again, it's a great resource, always backed up with references. This is a highly curated site, and it's a very, very valuable resource for you as well to have. So that's GIDEON. And visualize what they do have now. They have really increased recently is epidemiological graphs and disease outbreak maps. So if we go to disease outbreak, and they don't have, let's see if toxoplasma is in there. Yep, toxoplasmosis is in there. So we can actually see where problems are right now. And, you may not believe it, but we do have cases in the United States as well. So always good to see what's happening in the real world. And again, once you are in the clinics and make your own decisions and diagnoses, you can go to these resources and then figure out, because again, what you learn today, sometimes things do change in terms of especially distribution, and outbreaks obviously are very current. Okay, another great site is the Parasite Gal, which is a site created by an absolute expert in parasitology. And she is really interesting, really into parasitology, and especially also about teaching. So you have a lot of resources, flashcards, different parasites from A to Z, and so on and so forth. So again, lots of great resources, and especially for the ACP exam is the visual recognition of these images as well. Okay, and the last one is Quizlet, which is a study guides for the different chapters from our textbook that pertain to parasitology, and I created these study guides for you, and they're pretty extensive, probably a little bit more than you need to know, but it gives you a pretty good overview of the different organisms as well. So all this together should definitely help you to get a good overview of parasitology and get ready for the exam. All right, so I hope you enjoy the resources, and good luck with everything.